Good evening. My name's Evan, and welcome to Rocklin Graves. I don't actually know where to put this. I don't have a frame for it yet, so I can't prop it up behind me. I'm gonna have to get one though, because it's such a cool poster. They gave it to us as we were leaving Terrifier 2. It's already been over a year since Terrifier 2 came out. How crazy is that? There aren't any theaters near me that were playing it when it first came out, because Cineplex is all I've got, and they don't usually do unrated movies, but I guess they saw how successful the movie was, because they did show the re-release with the Terrifier 3 teaser at the end, so I finally got to see this movie on the big screen. It was really cool because I could tell that everyone there was just as excited as I was. I've been to a bunch of movies lately, and people have been talking up a storm and going on their phones and filming scenes for Snapchat, but at Terrifier, no one was talking and no one pulled out their phone even once. That's what's really cool about these more niche showings, is that you tend to only get people who are genuinely wanting to see the movie and aren't just looking for a fun night out. So we all know how great Terrifier 2 is, and it was just as great as I remember. I gave it a glowing review back when it came out, and I will be doing a deep dive on everything with Art the Clown next year, leading up to the release of the third movie. But the biggest draw for this re-release, aside from getting the chance to finally see the movie in the theater, was the teaser that they attached onto the end for Terrifier 3. As you saw, I got that fantastic poster that I need to get a frame for ASAP, and it's got a couple really neat Easter eggs that I enjoyed looking for. Sienna is Art's tree topper, which is just leaning further into the religious imagery from the second movie that I was noticing a lot more now that I've had time to sit with it. I am not here to talk about Terrifier 2 though, I'm saving that for next year. What I do want to talk about is that teaser they played for Terrifier 3, and also some additional information we got from Damien Leone. So thanks to some jackass leaking the poster online a few days before the re-release, everyone knew going into this teaser that Terrifier 3 is going to be a Christmas horror movie. I really wish that hadn't have happened, because that would have hit so much harder if I found out from this teaser, especially because the theater handed out the posters on the way out and they kept them hidden before, and I can only imagine the joy in my heart I'd feel after seeing that teaser and then being handed this beauty. I'm so in on Terrifier 3 being a Christmas movie. Halloween and Christmas are my two favorite times of year, and I've always loved Christmas horror movies. It works really well, and there are a handful that I watch seasonally that help me get into the spirit of things. It's one of my favorite subgenres of horror, so the fact that we're getting Art the Clown on Christmas makes me insanely excited. There's so much potential in Art's sadistic creativity mixed with the magic of Christmas. So in terms of the teaser itself, Leone confirmed that it was shot a long time ago. I'm not sure if it's actually going to be a part of the movie, or if this was more so just to whet our palate and establish that new Christmas setting. Thankfully, it's not some 15-second clip with a title card. It's like 2 minutes long. I had no clue what to expect beforehand, because we knew that it would be 2 minutes, but I didn't think they'd shot Terrifier 3 already, so I was very curious about what kind of footage we'd be getting. It's not a trailer for the movie, it's more like a 2-minute vibe check for Terrifier 3, which is exactly the kind of marketing I like. I'd imagine it'll be released online at some point, so if you couldn't make it to the re-release and you want to go into that teaser blind, I'm letting you know now that I'm going to talk about what happened in the teaser, so you can skip to the other chapters if you want to avoid getting that spoiled for you. So we see a young girl asleep in her room on Christmas Eve. You got those lovely bells chiming away, it's snowing heavily outside, things look a little hazy, so there's a chance that this is some sort of a dream sequence. Think that last scene in Krampus. She hears commotion downstairs, so she gets out of bed and slowly makes her way down, and this is when I really started to realize that Damien Leone is just as much of a fan of Christmas horror as I am, because the tone of this scene is just on point for what I look for. The little girl sees Santa Claus putting gifts under the Christmas tree, nice choral holiday music is filling the decorated room with cheer, and the girl is overjoyed at seeing the big man himself, who seems to be moving in a way very similar to David Howard Thornton, but that's probably nothing. She calls out to old Saint Nick, a beaming smile crossing her face in the childlike joy only carried on the winds of Christmas Eve, and yeah, it's Art the Clown in a Santa costume. He lifts up an axe and starts laughing, facing away from the girl as that badass theme kicks in, and that transitions into a title card that looks like it's paying homage to Black Christmas, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. It's still got that grainy grindhouse look over it though, which works really well. The music gets some sleigh bells added in, snow's falling all over the screen, There's a wreath with Terrifier superimposed over it, and then the 3 slowly fades in and the crowd goes wild. The teaser ends with Art sitting in a chair by the fireplace, gleefully eating cookies and drinking milk with his Santa beard pulled down, and he gives a milky little toast to the audience. Also, he's covered in blood, and the walls are covered in blood, and he wrote his name in blood on the walls, and there's a lot of blood. There's blood everywhere. And that's it. That's our introduction to the world of Terrifier 3, and I loved every second of it. The color grading, set design, and music all show that Leone really does get what makes Christmas horror work so well, and I think that this is the perfect direction to take for the 3rd movie. Terrifier 2 was so well received, and they could have played it safe and just done that again, but the fact that they're taking this in a very different direction tonally is just confirming what I was already thinking about this becoming one of the most iconic modern horror franchises. So let's talk a bit about what else we know about this movie. The second Terrifier had a much more fantasy-like tone than the original, which was gritty and grimy. That's something that fans of the original movie missed a lot in the second, and I do get that. I've always stood by that the first movie feels like a prototype compared to the second one. Leone has said he wants to bring back the darker and dirtier feel of that first movie, which I'm all on board with, because this time around we've got a narrative and characters to dive into and explore more, which is where the first movie really falls flat. Terrifier 2 set up a whole whack of insane things that have to get explained in this 3rd entry, and considering just how much was there, the fact that Leone has also said this is going to be a more reasonable runtime means that this could be a movie filled to the brim with Christmas goodies and very little filler, which is great. We don't know for sure how many more entries the franchise is getting, so there could still be questions introduced or even some left unanswered from the second, but we'll have to wait and see on that. There will very likely be a 4th movie, but it's uncertain where things will go beyond that. Thankfully, Leone has made it very clear that he has an ending in mind for the franchise, which is perfect because when you have an end goal in mind, it can result in a much more coherent story. Terrifier 3 is remaining an independent movie, and I have a lot of respect for Leone not being willing to compromise his vision for a bigger budget. Apparently there were meetings with substantial studios who wanted to pick up the IP and finance the next entry, but the vibe was that they'd be over Leone's shoulder the whole time trying to make him dial back the violence because things like Terrifier just don't get mass-produced. It's too much for most people, but these movies aren't made for them, so Leone decided to stick to what he knew and keep things independent, which is definitely the right choice. He talked about how insane the first 5 minutes of the movie are going to be, and that he knew getting these studios to read even the first few pages would result in them wanting to, change things, and apparently, that first scene isn't even the big death scene, so I think we're in store for a pretty insane sequel here, but what did you expect? I remember reading something somewhere in an interview where Leone talked about a death that he had in mind when he was making the first movie that he decided not to include because he thought it was too far. Damien Leone, the guy who made the Terrifier movies, thought a death was too far, and if I recall correctly, he said he might put it in the 3rd one. I have no idea what that could mean. Obviously, this is going to have a bigger budget. That's to be expected after the success of the second movie. And another thing that's really exciting to my nerdy film brain is that they're shooting this with anamorphic lenses, which will substantially change the look of the movie compared to the last 2, which were shot on spherical lenses. So yeah, Terrifier 3 is a Christmas movie. It'll be coming out at some point next year, and Leone is going to try and one-up Allie's death scene from Terrifier 2. Can't even imagine. This is easily one of my most anticipated movies of next year, and I'm really looking forward to covering the franchise leading up to its release. We're not far from the Christmas season now, actually, and I've got a few videos planned that I'm really excited about because I love Christmas horror so much. So did you get a chance to see this re-release and take a look at the teaser? Let me know what you thought, and let's all get aboard the hype train because this is looking to be a great Terrifier movie. Thank you for stopping by Rocklin Graves. I hope you've enjoyed your stay.